Hi, folks. Welcome to another edition of the Omnist Hour. Ratchet down the background music. Just have a little bit of it showing through. Let's see if the YouTube censorship bots don't like this version of a very old classical piece, which is in the public domain. I just got hit with another copyright strike, demonetizing another episode for absolutely no reason. This time it was really interesting. It wasn't a whole conglomerate of big media companies that put the strike on me. It was somebody claiming that I used part of a hymn in just one little section of my broadcast that they wanted to silence. Happened to be a section that I was talking about something very political. So you do the math. At any rate, um, do something a little different, like we often do, and look at a piece of the Bible that is kind of central to all of the monotheist belief and is the source of probably the most contention, if you really get right down to it, between the believers of all the different versions of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, as well as some of the nasty disputes with people that are not folks of the book. That is the Ten Commandments. So I'm going to title this one an Omnist assessment, Omnist analysis, Omnist whatever of the Ten Commandments. So, what are the Ten Commandments? I know some of you may not know what they are. So this supposedly was a list of the really fundamental rules for good society that were handed down to Moses directly from God. When he went up to the mountain and descended with the tablets, after being the burning bush and all the other things that happened with that incident. Not going to go into that, not going to critique it, not going to assess where this mythology came from or how it might be related to other mythologies or a reworking of older stories. There's plenty of people who want to talk about that. What I'm going to do is take each of these commandments and assess them from the standpoint of the Omnist philosophy / religion that I preach. Which is built upon the fundamental idea that God is not an almighty, micromanaging, all-powerful master of the universe. God is the first creator who got the whole process started and allowed all his children, who were also independent consciousnesses with the same ability to develop into creators as he was. And the whole history of creation is all about what the family did with their freedoms, for better or worse. The other piece of Omnist, dogma, if you will, I don't really think of it as dogma because it's pretty patently obvious if you look at the world around you. Everything has a soul. Now, yes, a human incarnated soul is probably a relatively advanced one, a relatively conscious one compared to the soul that inhabits a grain of sand, for instance, or even the soul that, is running a brown dwarf now. There's not a lot of action in the brown dwarf game. There's not a lot of creativity there. You pretty much follow the laws of physics. But these things do, in fact, have souls. They have some level of consciousness. They have an incarnation experience that is consistent with their chosen vehicle. And we do choose, in between the incarnations, what our next incarnation is going to be like. Not exactly what we're going to do. We don't get to choose everything. It's not like going to, Home Depot and choosing the exact color and layout of your new kitchen set and putting it wherever you want because you can magically make your kitchen as big as you want, right? That's not the way it works, at least not at the lower levels of consciousness. Okay, so let's delve into one by one these 10 commandments. The first one is, you shall have no other gods before me. Okay, well, some of the questions an Omnist would ask is, well, who is me? And who are these other gods? And why does this one God who calls himself me think that he deserves to dictate the beliefs and the loyalty of everybody around him? That sounds less like a god and more like a dictator. And if you've heard me talk on the subject, you will know that I believe that much of the God of the Old Testament is actually an anti-God who was at work while God was sleeping, not really sleeping, not resting, but testing. God was personally experiencing reincarnation and karma, which is what the whole Messiah thing is all about, and why there are Messiah kind of traditions throughout human history. In almost every culture, almost every tribal tradition, there's a sense of a returning friend of humanity who helps humanity pass the rough spots and gets them on to the next level, saves them from the flood, etc., etc. And that returning God that incarnates as human and lives within the limitations of a human, or maybe non-human. This is another thing that I will tell you in other chapters, is not all the messiahs were human. Not all the chosen species were human. We're just the latest one. Okay? And yes, there were many gods, and they were jealous gods. Why? Because they weren't the God. They weren't the first creator. They weren't even close to the first creator. They just happened to be the bunch of gods incarnated in God-level species that were mucking around with the earth that managed to create the human species as we know it today. And that was the work of many, many genetic modifications. In fact, the work of basically every bit of genetics going back to the invention of DNA was all designed to lead up to creating the perfect soul vehicle for final testing of karma. That's what we are here. That's what we're doing today. So, you shall have no other gods before me. I mean, that is an evil God. I don't know how to put that. That is a God that expects absolute devotion, absolute worship, or else this is not the first creator. Sorry. If this is how you live your life, you're probably a very fundamentalist Christian, fundamentalist Muslim, fundamentalist Jew who thinks that God is this super powerful entity that will support you in whatever you do because my God is the only God and I've got to wipe out all the other gods around me, all the people who believe in anything else. This one line of the Bible is at the root of pretty much all of the dark side of monotheist religion. This is trash. So this commandment is absolute shit. I don't mind saying it. You can throw darts at me and call me the Antichrist or whatever, but this is an evil commandment. It goes against free will. It goes against the right of people to decide for themselves the truth. And it is responsible for people auguring into dogmatic systems of belief that are completely out of touch with the times. And because of that, because of Christianity and Islam getting so out of touch with the times, this has allowed new anti-God, atheist yet ideologies and theologies to creep in and steal the good from religion, because there is good. So I'm telling you, monotheists, Christians, Muslims, Jews, cosmic oneness, cultists, you are your own worst enemy by demanding that there be this one, R1, and nothing else is the truth. Nothing else is real. This is dark. This is really dark. Even if you cast it as something light, it will turn into something dark whenever you run across anybody that opposes the will of your group. Okay, number 2. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images. Now, that one has been the subject of a fair amount of dispute, but basically, it was all about, in the origin, about people worshiping idols, worshiping their God in its image as a statue. And I don't know if I really agree with that. I mean, why not? Why not have an icon that represents their God? In fact, what else is the cross for Christians but an icon that represents your ideal of God? What is the six-pointed Star of David but a graven image? What is the crescent of the crescent and moon of Islam but an image? So, you're all guilty of breaking this one, and frankly, I think it doesn't make any sense in the first place. We need symbols, and symbols are becoming more and more important in the world. And if anything, religion has kind of lost the battle of symbology to the mavens of memedom, the creators of emojis and GIFs and other such means of expression that create iconic symbols that now are starting to garner more influence, more power than some of the traditional symbols, like a cross, like the Taoist yin-yang symbol, etc., etc. So I think graven images are okay, and everybody should be allowed to represent their faith in a way that feels good to them, as long as it's tasteful, doesn't, overtly try to offend anybody. And, this kind of gets into the problem with some of the people attacking Islam now. Overtly and deliberately doing things to anger the Islamic community in their country. This is evil. This is dark karma. You are stepping on these people, deliberately violating their sovereignty by doing that. There's a tasteful way and there's a distasteful way to criticize another religion. And you don't criticize a religion out of hand by denigrating its prophet. You don't draw Christ in a way that's going to offend Christians. You don't make Christ with breasts. This is politicizing and denigrating the way other people see this figure. If you want to do that, if that's the way you want to worship your God, make a new emblem. Call it something new. Okay, don't try to dovetail on somebody else's religion for like, shares, and subscribe. This is dark karma stuff. This is taking advantage of another group's notoriety and turning it into basically a meme for profit, for benefit. And these are always half-truths. These are not, by any stretch of the imagination, blanket criticisms of all of that religion. because every religion has different sects. It has different groups. It's worshipped differently in different countries. I know because I have actually been to multiple Muslim countries, many Christian countries, many atheist countries, and I can tell you that they have different ways of viewing their belief system. Even if they identify with one core word, and to attack them all for the actions of a few, which are mostly politicized and weaponized versions of those religions, is just letting yourself fall victim to the kill-all religion cult. And there definitely is a cult of killing all religion. The whole postmodernist bullshit has been about, it's time to kill God. We don't need him anymore, right? This is what people were thinking and are still thinking in the atheist camp. We don't need the bastard. Because their only vision of the bastard is the Old Testament, and they don't like that. I understand that, but you don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. And that is not the real God. There were a lot of pretenders while God was resting, testing. A lot of children who wanted to rise to become the most powerful God on earth by pretending to be the one, either male or female. That's how we got the great goddess. That's how we got all of the heads of the pantheons of male gods. They were all pretenders to being the supreme God. Not supreme God, but the first creator. The first father. It's much more healthy to view God as a father. A very prolific father who wanted to have a very big family and didn't realize how much trouble they were going to get up to until it was too late to do anything but come up with this crazy plan of starting the physical universe, letting them sort it out and develop this law of karma to govern themselves. Okay. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Well, what is that? I'm not supposed to say God damn? Not supposed to say Jesus? This one doesn't make any sense either. Why that would be a poor law for everybody is just a waste of paper as far as I'm concerned. We need to discuss things. We need to talk openly. Free speech, free thought is what God is all about. That was his gift to all the children. And it's never been taken away. Now, granted, some of the children do start out, as I tell you, as level 0 consciousness soul. What I also call a virtual soul. These souls do not have much free will. They're kind of doomed to follow the programming of the soul that they replaced. And many of them exist just to do all the bookkeeping tasks of the universes, of the multiverse. So these are the souls that inhabit really boring things like, a grain of sand or a ground dwarf. They don't know what they're doing. They're just following the rules. And these are souls that are either newbie souls that came into existence because there wasn't anybody to assign that task, or they are souls sent there remedially because they have supported authoritarianism. They have supported regimes that wanted to tell you what to do, when to do, and how to do it. And if you support tyranny, that's the kind of assignment you're likely to get in your next incarnation. Okay, let's see. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. I'll make a comment on this. Now, interesting thing is there are multiple Sabbaths, as most of you know. Some faiths celebrate Sabbath on a Saturday, some celebrate on a Sunday. And in my teaching, the future, I believe, is the 3-day Sabbath. Monday is the next Sabbath. Why? Well, let's look at it this way. One of the very serious problems that we've been facing is the lack of useful work for all the people to do so that we can distribute gainful employment, distribute income to people without just throwing money at them, which is a recipe for disaster, as we know. People don't appreciate stuff that just comes down like manna for free. And most people will just turn around and, oh, the government sent me a $600 check. I'm going to go out and buy a new TV set. This is how most people think. You don't help souls at all by throwing things at them and not expecting something in return. And this is why Christianity's idea of instant salvation, if I just praise Jesus, or on my deathbed, oh, Jesus is Lord, I'm coming to you. That's bullshit. You got to earn it. You have to earn everything that's worth having. And if you don't earn it, you're going to suffer for not having earned it. There's no easy path to salvation. There is no easy path to enlightenment. Anybody who's selling that bullshit is giving you snake oil, lollipop lies. Yeah, they may have a big following. They may have a big, huge church. They may have a big ashram in India and get all sorts of people coming from all over the world to hear their wisdom. They're bullshit. If their teachings are that popular, they are fucking materialist bullshit artists. That's not what it's about. The real spiritual teachers, the real spiritual healers are the ones that do their work because they know they're good at it. They take compensation, sure, but they don't tout. They don't pretend to be something they're not, and they're very free to admit that their powers are limited. My technique doesn't work for every client that comes to me. And most of the honest spiritual people will offer a free consultation before they will take anybody's money. That's only fair because you've got to see how well you work together, because that's how soul relationships work. It's built on resonances. You can have the greatest healing spiritual power in the world, and I guarantee it won't work on everybody. If you think it does, you are under the spell of some real huge charlatan. Let's leave it at that. Anyway, this Monday Sabbath. So what are the 3 Sabbaths of Omnism? The Saturday Sabbath is the day that you go out shopping, meeting friends, doing things that you do on a Saturday. Very much like most people spend a Saturday nowadays. Sunday is the Sabbath of family. You stay at home, you spend time with your family. You get back in touch with your closest relationships. Monday is the Sabbath for you to explore what your mission is, the meaning of your life, where you're at. Try a new hobby, read a new book, do something different, whatever it is that serves you. And that's why it needs to be absolutely a very just as honored day off as the other 3. Now, of course, that won't necessarily work for all work schedules, but I guarantee if companies took up the idea of having a 3 days on, 4 days on, 3 days off work schedule as the norm, they could find a way to make it work and provide employment for more people and cover as many shifts as they needed to cover to get the work done and have a much happier workforce. So these Sabbath days aren't cast in stone necessarily. It's the idea behind the Sabbath. It's not the particular day of the week it falls. All of this bullshit that people go through about calculating, well, when was the real Sabbath? So we know exactly when the right date of this was and that was, so we can calculate the end of the world. This is insane bullshit. Absolutely insane. To think that those dates are cast in stone in the Bible and you can calculate based upon the dates listed and the ages and stuff like that of the patriarchs and stuff like that. This is vaguely remembered oral history from before the flood. Okay, there's probably a truth in it. I'm sure there is. And I'm absolutely sure that there was an era of gods and pseudo-gods where the most advanced humans of the time were a hybrid that lived much longer than today. But, you got to stop arguing in on this stuff. Arguing over what the Sabbath is and when to celebrate it and who's going to get the day off. And let's just have 3 days off. Have the general idea of those 3 days like I laid out and let people use it as they will. Their own free will. Not required to worship any God because the real God needs no worship. He's got more fans and followers in heaven than he wants to deal with. And that's why he's got his own universe where he retreats when he doesn't want anybody to bug him. And that's one of the benefits of being a god, is you have your own universe, which is distinct and different from the mixing universe, the prime universe that we're in. Well, one of the prime universes, which I tell you is we are part of a universe pair. That's how creation got started. The Big Bang was 2 universes beginning at the same time. Positive universe and an anti-universe. Positive universe run by God's team. Creative ideas coming out of there. And the negative universe run by Borg's team. The negative ideas coming out of there. And the mixing of those ideas are what drove creation. The conflict between those ideas. That's why you need light and dark. That's the whole reason behind the yin-yang system. It doesn't mean that they're equal. Doesn't mean bad is good. Doesn't mean evil is good or there's no difference between them. It means that you have to have this dynamic tension in order for creation to evolve. In order for the system of karma to evolve, to make eventually a system where we can isolate the truly evil souls from everybody else so we don't have to have so many laws to keep them in check. Until we do need laws. And the Ten Commandments were a stab at that, and a very rudimentary stab. Okay, next one, honor your father and mother. I think that's a good one. Your parents, for better or worse, were the ones that brought you into the world. You would not exist without them. Now, you may say, well, I didn't want to be born. I didn't ask to be born. That's not true. From an Omnist point of view, and actually most people who have had much experience with the other side can tell you this, souls choose their incarnation. They don't choose everything, but it depends on what their level is. If you're a run-of-the-mill, say, human incarnating soul that's been through a dozen or so lives as a human, they'll get you up there in your particular heaven, whether it's a Christian heaven or a Muslim heaven or a whatever heaven, and they'll looking around for fetuses, roughly 4 to 6 months of development, and that need a soul, that have got attracted a soul. Yeah, and they'll hey, how about this one? There's this couple. They're gonna have a baby. He's this. He's that. They're living in this time in this place. This is kind of the general setup. How'd you like to go try that life? And they may negotiate. Well, I'll try that one if so and so, one of my guides or friends or whatever is going to come and incarnate as this, which will allow me to try to work on this in this life. That's kind of the negotiation you go through in planning an incarnation. So you actually do choose your father and mother. Now, it does happen that either the father or the mother or some external force like a government or whatever interferes with that choice. They will kill the mother. They will forcibly abort the baby after it's chosen its soul vehicle, karmic sin, as we talked about in the segment on abortion. But these people should be honored. And because of that close relationship, even though it's only a DNA relationship and not necessarily a deep soul relationship, you're going to form a soul relationship with them throughout the course of that incarnation. And that is going to be a tie that lasts forever. Now through the course of many, many incarnations, you will have many, many, many mothers and fathers. And not all of them will ever be that important to you or you important to them. So honor doesn't mean you let them run your life, which is how this has been interpreted by many cultures, and especially in Asia, where basically parents are allowed to dictate to their children the parameters of their life. It's not good. So I might modify this to honor your father and mother as you would honor yourself, or as you expect them to honor you. Make it a bilateral relationship, not just one way. With the understanding that, karmic sins go both ways. Parents sometimes hurt children unnecessarily. Children absolutely hurt parents unnecessarily. And, while that usually happens a fair amount before a child is old enough to have much sense of responsibility, much sense of what is good or bad, if it's allowed to continue, these children will become narcissistic, they will become abusive, manipulative, and some of them will become criminals. This is how evil develops in naive souls. Now, there will be some children born that are older souls that are already down the evil path. And I've explained why they're here, because we need souls of all varieties and all shapes and sizes to do the final testing of this law of karma that we're just finishing up in this 7th day of creation. Okay, so yeah, I like that one. Thou shalt not kill. This is a really problematic one, isn't it? What do we mean by kill? Well, you say kill another human being. Well, are human beings the only things that have souls? No, of course not. Everything has a soul. And killing the body, is that really death? No, because the soul is immortal. Actually, the symbolic killing of the soul is much worse than physical killing. To degrade someone to the point where they have lost their soul, where they're willing to do anything to preserve their life, to save their children, to say this is killing the soul. And this is a much worse karmic sin than killing something physically. Similarly, you can't exist without killing something. In fact, our bodies are killing things all the time. Our bodies are naturally killing bacteria and viruses nonstop, millions of them. Okay, so it's not so much killing that is wrong. And I'll share a story from my awakening that I think will sort of illustrate where I think you need to start coming from in your thinking about killing. Okay, my first ayahuasca ceremony, one of the places I was taken to early in the first evening was I was the chief of a tribe, or maybe the shaman, I don't know which. I think they were both. That I was sitting on top of a hill. It was late evening, almost completely dark, and I could see the campfire going down below, and my tribe sleeping. We'd all eaten very well because we had a good kill that day. We brought down a big deer and feasted, and it was like life was good. This is as good as it gets for a chief. And then I suddenly had this horrible feeling of remorse because I thought of the deer that we killed, and I thought, there's a living being there that we just butchered without a thought. And, it's probably got a family that it's not with now. It's got children it's not able to feed. It's got a tribe that is missing. And I started crying. And then in my mind, the voice of the deer spoke out. He said, "Don't cry. I gave my life to you. I gave my life to your tribe. All I ask in return is that you honor me by praying for my soul. Because I want to be more than a deer. I want to be like you sometimes. I want to be part of a chosen species." And this is the essence of what killing is all about. You have to honor and kill not without regard, not without remorse. If you have to kill consciously. Do it because this is the only way for your family to survive. This is the only way for your country to survive. This is the only way that you can see to continue the journey you're on with open eyes and knowing that, yeah, you're making this decision and you're going to have to be responsible for the consequences. And we don't always know the karmic consequences of our actions. So you're laying in bed and you're suddenly awakened by a noise, and you see somebody, shadow of a person outside the window. You reach for your gun in the drawer and you point out the window and you shoot him. Turns out to be your son, sneaking home after being out late with his friends. Where does the karma fall there? Conscious decision. Weighing what's going to happen with the understanding that the soul is immortal. You may want to end this life. You may hate life. You may hate the whole world. But if you try to kill it, you're only going to make it worse. So, negotiate. Seek help. But don't let anybody push you around. Because if they're pushing you around, if they're trying to kill your soul, You've got to defend your sovereignty. And I think if you look at killing that way, you'll come up with a much better understanding of what it's all about than, falling on one side or the other of the gun rights battle. Thou shalt not commit adultery. What is adultery? That's an interesting term, isn't it? Adultery. I really think that this one needs a facelift, frankly. Adultery is kind of a very vague and nebulous term. Adultery. Is that being like an adult? Acting like an adult? Well, that should be a good thing, isn't it? I think we need a better definition of adultery that is consistent with karmic sin. Karmic sin is always rooted in tyranny, using or abusing someone else, either against their will or through false pretenses. Okay? So, the things that I would include in this are manipulating children's minds for a sexual or political agenda. That's adultery. Grooming children to participate in pedophilia shows. That's adultery. Raping another person or forcing them to have sex with you because of a position of power. That's adultery. Cheating on someone that you promised to give your faith to and to whatever your vows were taken in marriage. It's adultery. Unless it's done openly, with permission, and there are open marriages, and that's okay. If everybody's all on board with it, then you're doing it in an adult way, and nobody's business what you're doing. If you want to live in a plural marriage, go for it. The law may not support it legally, but I don't think anybody should be going and raiding anybody's house to see how many spouses a man has, or how many spouses a woman has, or whether, 3 dogs are living with 3 cats and an old transvestite. None of their business. You don't mess with adults unless they're stepping on the sovereignty of other souls. And that makes it very clear what adultery is, what a crime is. And these are things that pretty much every moral person can agree to. If you don't agree to this, the only possible explanation for you not agreeing is that you actively want to be able to do some of these manipulative and controlling and harming things to other souls. You're guilty. I'm sorry. You're committing a karmic sin by supporting a platform of licentiousness. And guilt by association is a karmic sin. If you stand by and do nothing, when you see karmic sins go on, when you see tyranny happening around you, whether at an individual level, community level, organizational level, country level, world level, you sit back and do nothing, say, well, it's somebody else's problem, or I'm not going to lift my head up, I don't want to get it whacked off. You have a karmic guilt by association, and that is going to affect what opportunity you get in the next life. And I'm telling you, you're not going to get another chance at a human soul vehicle in the prime universe. The good prime universe, God's universe. You'll probably get as many chances as you want in Borg's universe, because that's what the Borg version of humanity is eventually going to be, is basically a hive mind species that's been turned into automatons that can be programmed to march to Borg's tune. And yes, we will eventually fight them. And they will look just like us and act just like us, be programmed to be exact duplicates of us, in fact, and we will somehow win the battle. Okay, final one, thou shalt not steal. Now, what does steal mean? It means that inherently there is an idea of possession. This is mine, this is yours. Well, is possession a good thing? Communists will tell you it's not. Oh, that's the reason why there's all the problems in the world, because everybody owns everything, and everything should be owned in public, and we should all share everything as a commune, and everybody should do all the work, and everybody get a piece of, their share of the benefits, and blah, 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 blah. This is bullshit. Completely inconsistent with human nature. We own things. We own the destiny of our soul. We own our minds. We own our free will. We own our free choice. We have to take responsibility for it. Now, this is the other side of the whole stealing thing that we need to get into, because if you own something and you think that nobody can steal it from you, then you better damn sure take responsibility for it. Now, what does responsible ownership of a large piece of land entail? It entails using that land responsibly. If you own millions of acres of land in the U.S. and there's a food shortage in the U.S., you damn sure better be sending your food to the U.S. first, before you export it overseas, or before you put it on the open market to the highest bidder and profiteer from that grain or that product. Same goes for oil. Okay, so that kind of ownership, monopolistic ownership, is absolutely evil. And that is irresponsible ownership. It is ownership that negates the fact that ultimately, who owned this before you? God. Or some other representative of God. Somebody higher up the food chain than you'll ever be. Ultimately, it all goes back to who had the idea of karma, because that's what's going to come and bite you if you own things irresponsibly. Same thing goes for people who steal irresponsibly. There's a big difference between going into a supermarket and grabbing a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter so your family doesn't starve that day, and running into a Neiman Marcus with a mob of friends, tearing everything apart and grabbing all the high-end shoes and products and stuff. Oh, it's a big company. They have insurance, blah, 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 blah. This is what's happening right now. And this is irresponsible stealing, and it is absolutely evil. And you are going to suffer karmic consequences for it. Even if the government is not coming after you for it, because somehow they think you're the good guys in this political struggle, you are going to be punished. How are you going to be punished? When you die, you are not coming back as a human on this planet. The world you're going to see, or if you are human, the world or future you're going to see is going to be an authoritarian utopia, where you finally see what useful idiots you've been, trying to tear apart your country, trying to tear apart your economy, so you can have your big revolution and we can get what's ours. Stealing. Communism is an ideology of institutionalized theft. Nothing more, nothing less. Anyone who tells you any different is either stupid or wants the power and doesn't care how they get it. And that is tyranny, my friends. That is somebody that wants a tyranny. They think, oh, if only we had a communist government in charge, if only the Democrats ran everything, if only the Republicans ran everything, then everything would be perfect and we could stamp out all the bad guys. You're insane. You're tyrants. And you're going to be punished for thinking like that. Don't say I didn't warn you. Well, I think that's enough on the 10 Commandments. I hope you found this useful and instructive. Absolutely comment. Strike up an argument if you like. Refute any points I've made. And until next time, this is Rob Funk with the Omnist Hour. Like, share, subscribe, and tune in again for another episode. Take care.